Welcome to our first Vocarium event of the season and to this much anticipated reading and meeting of Layli Long Soldier and Nicole Sealey. I wanted to thank Tracy K. Smith for helping to make this evening possible, as she makes so much possible on campus and beyond. I'm not here to give the introduction. That honor is going to go to poet and scholar Keith Jones, and you'll soon understand why. I am here to make the opening remarks, and it is to opening itself that this reading is dedicated as a poetics and as an ethics. The poetry that we'll encounter tonight exists, resists, persists around openings, as the body does and as the earth would if we were not wont to obstruct it. Though Layli and Nicole's work emerges from distinctly different lives and histories and experiences, they share in the effort to restore air, awe, light, pause, passage to such otherwise closed and clenched situations, texts, and mindsets, what Lynn Haginian once called the false halts in our culture. Through the practice of erasure, which Keith will explore in greater depth, their work does not strike out so much as reveal cross-currents, connectivities, subtexts, lyricisms, lost histories. At this deeply fraught time in our world, this practice offers tremendous solace and ecstatic insight, and what Aimé Césaire called a precious vortex of extraordinary contacts, as if none of the fearsome forces can, and I quote, hold out against the gales of openness. I stand in awe of their capacity to forge breath holes into blocks of imposed prose and to find fissures and furious flowering within the seemingly impenetrable walls that confront us, what the great Moroccan poet Abdellatif Labi calls the wall that hides the world. And through the concomitant practice of elision, their poetry seeks to bring together what has been separated, fostering vital recombinants and infusing deadened zones with susurrus possibilities, that we become with each other or not at all, as environmental thinker Donna Haraway has said. In closing this opening, I wanted to take a moment to pay homage to three beloved poets and beings who have passed in recent weeks: Tyrone Williams, Penelope Creeley, and Lynn Haginian. Lynn once wrote that poets give rise to impossible futures. And it is to that possibility that we dedicate ourselves this evening, and it is in their loving memory that we press forward. Please welcome Keith Jones.
Full house. All right. Can you hear me in the back? Yeah? All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry, good evening? Good evening. All right. Thank you, Christina. As always, the majesty of your curatorial effect is wondrous. An abolitionist poetics on erasure and presencing in Nicole Sealey and Layli Long Soldier. Layli Long Soldier's Whereas begins with an epigraph by the great poet Arthur Z., which reads, "No word has any special hierarchy over any other, as if by this radical incantation, whereas becomes thereby enchanted as we enter the text. Indeed, evoking C's refusal of a special hierarchy points to what we might call an abolitionist poetics, that is, a poetics committed to an aesthetic practice unstructured by structures of domination, in Stuart Hall's indispensable phrase. By tracing their shared practice of erasure as presencing, I hope to suggest the importance and urgency at this historical moment of reading Nicole Sealey and Layli Long Soldier together. In Long Soldier's patient crafting, in her suturing the inundations of centuries of conquest against native peoples, she unsettles the settled ways in which much of what is in our collective national mouth is a war crime speak that attempts to paper over by treaty, by law, by apology, the predations of a continuously unfolding white settler colonial project. Instead, in whereas, she writes, now make room in the mouth for grasses, grasses, grasses. Run together less as one word than as a phenomena or ontology beyond capture or description. More precisely, it conjures a territoriality unparceled, uncommodified, and thus uncommodifiable, as much sacred place as sacred presence. Later in the poem Steady Summer, Long Soldier writes, in those heady grasses the mouth loosens, confesses, I don't trust nobody, but the land, I said. The poem ends with this beautiful bluish pass of day, this grass, shh, shh, who have I become? Land, personhood, kindredness move as if one pleated stanza in this poem. No terra nullius, no doctrine of discovery, but a peopling, proliferating plenitude of interanimating life, the borders of which don't so much break down as remind us they were never there. Passing, passage, porousness throughout, whereas we find a rapturous lyric entanglement that is an earth voice, an ancestral voice, lodged in and against the colonial archive's brutal erasures, which is why Long Soldier writes, I must art. Intimate historical violence is taken seriously in these poems. The breeze of the wind, that is the terror of the storm, ripples across these pages and into Long Soldier's most recent work. In Night Poems, she writes, witness a vivid reflection of a being you call I, who sees another called you. In Long Soldier, witnessing is a you and I of vivid reflection. Her page, the healing place of plenitude's reparative mirroring. It is rumored gods grow where the blood of a hanged man drips. Nicole Sealey writes in Even the Gods, a poem from her 2017 book, Ordinary Beasts. Poetry as a propitiatory rite, as a shrine house, is everywhere in the architectonics, the feel and touch of her poems. In her poem In Igbo Land, a powerful figure for the shrine house emerges, called Mbari in Igbo. She writes, everything aspires to one degradation or another. I want to learn how to make something holy, then walk away. Different temporalities and forms of worship here collide as the lines layer into a dissolving structure. Here, defiance of the given, defiance of the found becomes a sacred world-making act. In Sealey's recent work, she surfaces the present absences within the U.S. Department of Justice's 2015 investigation of the Ferguson Police Department, commissioned after the public lynching and dishonoring of Michael Brown. The Ferguson Report for Sealey becomes a collective house for a sacred initiative. Like in Long Soldier, these poems ask, how do we remake a plenitude out of the shards and debris relentlessly churned out by the Imperium's real and discursive death-making machinery? Astonishingly, Sealey stages the report's words and letters appearing across these fading, gray, struck-through pages as if emergent, blood-soaked seeds, or as darkened petals falling, falling, falling. Yet out of the empire's empty speak, much like in Long Soldier's rewriting of the 2009 congressional resolution of apology to Native Americans, a gift of poems emerges, witnessing, offering new words for our collective mouths. In this way, Sealey, like Long Soldier, resurrects the sunken glyphs of Black and Native lives in the dead lettered fields of settler colonialism's archive. At the end of a particularly poignant section, Sealey finds in the word payment the presence of men in payment. It is shockingly astute. There on the page, palimpsested with care, lies the unhidden desire of the European colonial project: to bury African peoples in the coffin box of profit. In a later section, the poet will find, by way of erasure, a promise of a different kind of future, a different kind of music, beaten to shreds by wind. Our heads twitch birds. I hear in this twitch bird's song a similar refrain, a similar vibration along or within the choral entanglement of being that duets extraordinarily well with Long Soldier's equally stunning phrase, curative voicing. In these times, it is an honor to be in community with poets who teach us how to refuse, how to abolish the master's text. They write on, they write over, they write back, as Sealey suggests, to walk away from in order to walk ever closer to witnessing, witnessing, witnessing. All one word, unboundedly holy, and seamlessly held by mutual astonishment and the radical love of sacred care. We appreciate you both for this teaching and for this gift. Please help me warmly welcome tonight Nicole Sealey and Layli Long Soldier.
Thank you so much. Wow. How's this? Can you hear me? So first I want to say thank you for the invitation to be here. It's such an honor. And thank you all for coming and sharing the evening with us. And yeah, I'm excited. Let's see here. 1 second. So this evening I am going to read from two recent projects in the last year. So I sent you night poems and day poems. That's one project. I was commissioned by a place called the Holt Smithson Foundation. And I wrote for them some night poems and day poems. And then I also recently wrote some work for a film titled Lakota Nation versus United States. I think you can see that on Amazon. And in that film, you will see also or hear some of the work I'm sharing tonight. Night poems and day poems are going to bookend the 135 X's, which is the piece I wrote for the film. I really wanted to share the 135 X's with you. It's just a selection. It's turned out to be a huge monster. It's taken me 2 years to revise and cut and redo and all of these things. The other day, yesterday morning, I woke up and it came to me how to finish it, finally. So anyone who's a writer, artist, you know, it feels like an unpaid bill. And you can't force it and you can't push it, and then it'll come. And it's been 2 years and it came yesterday. And I was up all night the night before reading and looking at videos from Gaza. I think maybe that opened the window, you know, for that. So tonight I wanted to start with a quote from Mossab Abu Toha, and thinking of him and his family and the people there. There's something that resonated in this piece. It's from a litany for, quote, one land. One day, we will be born again when you're not there, because this land knows us. She is our mother. When we die, we're just resting in her womb until the darkness is cleared. For those who are not here anymore, we have been here forever. We have been speaking, but you never cared to listen. Night poems. Oh. Oh. Oh my God, I'm so confused. Okay, I don't know if you can see this. Night, I fall. Night, air. At night, I'm invisible, unnoticed, weightless, unimportant, beautiful. Nights like this, I'm at the end and beginning of utter ends, sapling tenderness like longing or prayer, but simpler, purer, dark. Night is an agreement. Close the eyes and peer into a black lake. Without blinking, witness a vivid reflection of a being you call I, who sees another called you. Are emotional, you are truthful. I is sizzling grease or a razor fight. I is a swollen belly or a leaf on water. I is warning you or inviting you, like a poet, to see you clearly. Night gives you this. In return, you return, loyal I, as an only child. I always make this joke or a funny thing about being an only child because I always think of myself as an only child, but I'm not. So I had a student who brought in a poem about being an only child, and I said, oh my God, I really understand that. You know, I know that feeling. And then I realized on my mom's side, there's 4 of us, and on my dad's side, there's 9 of us. There's like a lot. I'm not the only one, but I'm very emo, and I think I'm the only one in the whole planet that is exists, I think. Okay. Someone told me law is language. And then, of all things, I enrolled in law school 2 years ago, a year ago. And the first week of classes, one of the professors started his lecture and he said, law is language. And that's how he started, and he began to expand on that. And I said, I know, in my head, I said, I know, that's why I'm here. But more important than that, I think as Native people, we know that natural law always rules first, you know? Someone told me law is language, yet there is no greater law than natural law, as in a bare winter branch returns with shimmering leaves yearly. Likewise, you are one made from two. So, you seek two-ness as an act of selfhood naturally. And night's darkness is reliable, wherein two safely speak the words of surrender, such as, my love, I admit I am lost now without you. Then, in the dark, one follows the movements of another, and there is no absolute knowing what follows next, because uncertainty is the natural law of creating. All the while, night still holds the power of the sun. Therefore, I trust the sun, though I cannot see it. Surely, I trust the sun, though I cannot see it. $135. I'll be reading excerpts from a long piece titled 135 X's, which engages the 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie. Among many things, this treaty between the U.S. and the Oceti-Sakowin and our allies, the Arapaho, promised the continued retention of our place of belonging and origin, the Black Hills. This poem is, at its heart, dedicated. Oh my God, I forgot to click. Look at me. Okay. This poem is dedicated to the 135 Northern tribal leaders who signed our treaty in 1868. Red Cloud, who was among those 135 leaders, is famous for saying he was swindled. He said, quote, I am not hard to swindle because I do not know how to read or write and write. This piece is an effort to address what our beloved leaders could not read and could not sign their names to with anything other than X's. It's gonna get really weird trying to do both, so I'm just gonna click and I'm gonna read from the screen. It's better. I think it's gonna get too nuts, so I'll just do it. I can do this, okay. X marks. a love that comes from ikje, the regular and ordinary living of our people on this land for thousands of years. This is a truth that cannot be undone. Thus, it is power. X marks a love for our land, entirely independent of treaty and policies, unconcerned with platitudes or speeches made by well-known spokespeople. X marks an unusual declaration, then, that I felt a love for our land long before I existed. X marks the strange ways of time, how a century ago can feel like yesterday. And quote, from this day forward, feels like never. X marks the hills, the hail, the hoe, the blade, the cut hay, the cut hair, the him, the her, the they, the them, their hold, the holding, on who, by whom is the hate, the hit, the hurt, the heart, the harvest, the how. X marks Chesapa, the name we have called the Black Hills for millennia, before any and all treaties. X marks Paasapa, another name used for the Black Hills, depending on the speaker. X marks, a word in Lakota language that also refers to the Black Hills, meaning suitcase or container, as in the Black Hills is a container for everything we need. I adore this. X marks an agreement. Whatever name we use to refer to the Black Hills, it is unquestionably the place of our beginning. And another X marks this land as ours, unquestionably by treaty. And just a note, almost everyone, no matter where you come from or you live in the US here, your region will have a treaty. So you can usually look up those treaties online, in the archives, online archives. You can see the originals. Almost all of them are signed with X's. Another note is treaties are not just for Native people. Everyone sitting here is a treaty inheritor. You're here because of treaties. So it might be something you'd be interested in. X marks the mystery of an X. A symbol for the unknown, a variable, or crossbones of danger. X marks Treaty Article 7 that states, quote, in order to ensure the civilization of the Indians entering into this treaty, the necessity of education is admitted, especially of such of them as are or may be settled on said agricultural reservations. And they therefore pledge themselves to compel their children, male and female, between the ages of 6 and 16 years, to attend school. X marks the cross, the shape, the can't, the should, the shirt, the shoes, the school, the seat, the shift, the shunned, the shock, the sound, the shame, the change, the chair, the child, a child within, my child beside me. X marks the great disruption, that painful break in native language use caused by treaty-mandated Western education, i.e. boarding schools which ensured that our grandparents and parents would not speak Lakota language in the classroom, much less under their breath to one another. X marks breath that keeps the body alive, i.e., he is breathing, therefore he is still alive. Or the breath used to give sound to words, i.e., she is speaking, so the language is alive. Or breath in the collective body of our people, i.e., I assure you, we will tell the stories of what has happened, regardless of the language we use. Yet, X marks an assurance. Our language will not die. When an elder says this, I believe him, not because of statistics or research, but because of his demeanor, his relaxed shoulders, his fingers interlocked across his round tummy, the calm in his face, the warm and measured cadence of his voice. I believe him because he embodies Lakota. That should say through him. I'm at Harvard. I'm so intimidated. Any case, through him, I recognize an X that marks embodiment, because language is more than vocabulary. It is the way we carry ourselves as Lakota, and we will speak the language that emanates naturally. I believe this. I believe this because I must. Contrary to popular opinion, X marks the way that form precedes content. Meaning our manner, our form as a people determines the language we use. Uh-oh. Something's happening, some techie things. Should I go back? X marks the question I ask my students. What does it mean when a person signs a document with an X? X marks the silence in a room when I ask this question. X marks a line I once wrote. Everything is in the language we use. And X marks my humble correction. At critical moments, everything is in the language we do not understand. I'm going to move into the day poems, and actually I'm just going to tease you because for the sake of time, I'm going to wrap it up. But you can look up the day poems online if you go to the Holt-Smithson Foundation. I'm just going to share these pictures only to say that I have an installation in Montana right now where we've taken some of the text from one of the day poems and worked with shadow and light. And it's super fun. I like to work visually as well. And I'm teasing you, I'm not gonna read it. You want me to read one? Yes. Which one should I read? Look at that. That's a poem. That's so unfair. I'm calling it a poem because I want to. Okay, I'm gonna switch up gears. I like this one actually because it's, it is what it is. What am I gonna do? Let me find this, hold on. I've gotta read it from my screen here. 1 second. Sorry, guys. I'll conclude with this. Am I an artist if I fear the visible? If I shrink from the roaring sight of cyclone or the seismic breaking of asphalt from two sliding earth plates, hypocenter to epicenter, I resist the imperative to see, yet I must submit to the demands of daylight its ruthless optics. What I forgot to tell you is night is my favorite time of day. My name means night, Layli. So it's my time. It's my time to shine, right? And daytime is the time when, oh my God, I have to face reality, right? So I submit to the demands of daylight, its ruthless optics, in order to feel the totality as low-lying clouds cradle the Sandia Mountains. This place named, quote, water slides down Arroyo by our Tiwa friends. Let's not forget gratitude for this relationship between water and air, or earth and water, or fire and earth. Though my blood drains in witness to the brutal devouring of anything fragile, so endless in this living, I'm all the more stunned by a sweeping white stream, ghost-like vapor down the mountainside. We wonder out loud, is it a cloud, or is it fog, or mist, or maybe smoke rising skyward? This is true. And the Sandia Mountains are in New Mexico. And we were driving in Albuquerque, me and my kid, and we saw this white stream down the mountain, but we're not science people. So we're like, what is that? Is it fog? Is it smoke, you know? So what do we know about the elements as common people? We learn as we observe. The mountain says, come closer if you want to know mystery. Hands on the steering wheel, both eyes wide at the windshield. I'm pulled by the forces of relationship, as if I might finally learn what it was that descended so silently over the heart of my beloved, until inevitably he could no longer see me.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, there's a seat there.
And there's my
there's
seat.
Nicole's seat. So please. And you know what? Just take
Thank you so much for having me. Between visiting Tracy's class today and her brilliant students, and seeing dear friends in the audience, Ellen and Robert, and the introductions, my God, I need to take y'all on the road with me. And hearing Layli in person for the first time is just, I'm broken in the best ways, so thank you. And thank you all for being here as well. I'm gonna read a few poems from my first book, and then I'll read a few movements from my second. Sound good? Okay. I like to begin with a poem from my mother, just to have her here, because I'm constantly nervous, so she makes me not so much. Okay. The first person who will live to be 150 years old has already been born. This was for my mom. Scientists say the average human life gets 3 months longer every year. By this math, death will be optional. Whew, like a tie, or dessert, or suffering. My mother asks whether I'd want to live forever. I'd get bored, I tell her, But she says there's so much to do, meaning she believes there's much she hasn't done. 30 years ago, she was the age I am now, but unlike me, too industrious to think about birds disappeared by rain. If only we had more time, or enough money to be kept on ice until such a time science could bring us back. Of late, my mother has begun to think life short-lived. I'm too young to convince her otherwise. The one and only occasion I was in the same room as the Mona Lisa, it was encased in glass behind what I imagine were velvet ropes. There's far less between ourselves and oblivion. Skin that often defeats its very purpose. Or maybe its purpose isn't protection at all, but rather to provide a place similar to a doctor's waiting room in which to sit until our names are called. Hold your questions until the end. Mother, measure my wide open arms. We still have this much time to kill. Okay. This next poem is called Medical History. I've been pregnant. I've had sex with a man who's had sex with men. I can't sleep. My mother's mother had asthma. My father had a stroke. My father's mother has high blood pressure. Both grandfathers died from diabetes. I drink. I don't smoke. Xanax for flying, propranolol for anxiety. My eyes are bad. I'm spooked by wind. Cousin Lily died from an aneurysm. Aunt Ilda, a heart attack. Uncle Ken, wise as he was hit by a car, as if to disprove whatever theory toward which I write. And I understand the stars in the sky are already dead. That's one of the happier poems in the book. And the last time I read this poem, someone walked up to me after the reading and said, you know, the stars aren't really dead. And I know that there's a note at the back of the book, so don't walk up to me at the end of this. Okay. This is Hysterical Strength. When I hear news of a hitchhiker struck by lightning yet living, or a child lifting a 2-ton sedan to free his father pinned underneath, or a camper fighting off a grizzly with her bare hands until someone, a hunter perhaps, can shoot it dead, my thoughts turn to Black people, the hysterical strength we must possess to survive our very existence, which I fear many believe is and treat as itself a freak occurrence. Okay, just a couple more from this book. Ooh, yikes. Okay. This is called Candelabra with Heads. And this is a poem inspired by a work of art by this artist called Thomas Hirshhorn. And this work is a grouping of mannequins wrapped in brown. I'm seeing head nods, yay. Grouping of mannequins wrapped in brown duct tape and lifted up on a wooden structure. So I saw this piece and was inspired to write this. I stole the title is taken from the work. This is called Candelabra with Heads. And midway through, I reverse so the last half of the poem is the reverse of the first half, and then there's like a thesis statement at the end. It's complicated, whatever. Okay, Candelabra with Heads. Had I not brought with me my mind, as it has been made, this thing, this brood of mannequins cocooned and mounted on a wooden scaffold, might be 8 infants swaddled and sleeping, might be 8 fleshy fingers on one hand, might be a family tree with 8 pictured frames. Such treaties occur in the brain. Can you see them hanging? Their shadow is a crowd stripping the tree of souvenirs. Skin shrinks and splits. The bodies weep fat the color of yolk. Can you smell them burning, their perfume climbing, as wisteria would a trellis? As wisteria would a trellis burning, their perfume climbing, fat the color of yolk, can you smell them? Skin shrinks and splits, the bodies weep, is a crowd stripping the tree of souvenirs. Can you see them hanging, their shadow frames? Such treaties occur in the brain. Might be a family tree with 8 pictured. Might be 8 fleshy fingers on one hand. Might be 8 infants swaddled and sleeping and mounted on a wooden scaffold. This brood of mannequins cocooned, as it has been made, this thing. Had I not brought with me my mind, who can see this and not see lynchings? Oh, okay. This next poem is inspired by the one I just read at the advice of poets who I love, teach, all the things. They encouraged me to extract that last line from the poem, who can see this and not see lynchings. And I did so because, it was years ago. It was when my chapbook was coming out. I didn't really know how much authority I had in terms of editing, so I took it out. But it was missing. I felt it missing. And so for my full-length collection, I decided to return the line to its rightful place in the poem. So that movement, this is a defense in that movement, that impulse to replace the line in the poem. In defense of candelabra with heads. Oh, what else do you need to know? The chapbook in question is The Animal After Whom Other Animals Are Named. That's the name of the chapbook. In defense of candelabra with heads. If you've read the candelabra with heads that appears in this collection and the one in The Animal, thank you. The original, the one included here, is an example, I'm told, of a poem that can speak for itself but loses faith in its ability to do so by ending with a thesis question. Yeats said a poem should click shut like a well-made box. I don't disagree. I ask who can see this and not see lynchings, not because I don't trust you, dear reader, or my own abilities. I ask because the imagination would have us believe, much like faith, the original candelabra lacks in things unseen. You should know that human limbs burn like branches and branches like human limbs. Only after man began hanging man from trees, then setting him on fire, which would jump from limb to branch like a bastard species of bird, did we come to know such things. 100 years from now, October 9, 2116, 8:18 p.m., when all but the lucky are good and dead, may someone happen upon the question in question. May that lucky someone be black and so far removed from the verb lynch that she be dumbfounded by its meaning. May she then call up Hirshhorn's candelabra with heads. May her imagination, not her memory, run wild. Okay. So I'm going to read just a few movements from this and then read some OPP, other people's poetry. So you'll have to just buy the book if you want to read the whole thing. Okay. This is from the Ferguson Report in Erasure. Pages 1 to 12. Horses, hundreds, neighing. Part reflex, part reason, part particular urge. At gunpoint among them you are. Less likely to live into the wild go the captive born. Home in the high grass, a barking dog chokes itself against the pull of a tight leash. its neck extending farther than cries for help, a kind of headlight echoing, increasing in reach, the forecast red, the city red, diminishing to the proportion of. Whoever said death comes in threes is an optimist. Pages 13 to 21. Then the birds began to fly low and patternless, as if they were each two hands joined, just pretending at birds. The soft music from passing cars shouting down the soft music of their dying. Stop! Hands where I can see. A boy pretends to pray. His mark makes of her hands a bird and flies away. Stop, or I'll shoot, he kids, then makes of his hands a gun, fires away. Pages 35 to 39. Use of force, force of habit, of nature, force feed, force down, force his hand, force in line, full force, by force, show of force, brute force, blunt force to be reckoned with, force a smile as law enforcement turns out in force, to force, open your door. I think I'll end with pages 65 to 77, and then just one more poem after that. They say, stand in line, so we stand in line. As the line advances, they say, stand still. Around us, everything going like cars or clouds. Us, the blur cars pass. The blue clouds dam. They say wait, so we wait. As if for some fragrant flower that unfurls one night a year. They say shh, so like trees we mouth cross sounds of flags beaten to shreds by wind. Our heads twitch, birds watching for what might be stalking. Right before they deploy canines to bite, there's a pause between wails in which you hear your shut eyes dilate. Listen. And a last poem, bringing another voice into the room. This is by Mahmoud Darwish, and this is called I Belong There. I belong there. I have many memories. I was born as everyone is born. I have a mother, a house with many windows, brothers, friends, and a prison cell with a chilly window. I have a wave snatched by seagulls, a panorama of my own. I have a saturated meadow. In the deep horizon of my word, I have a moon, a bird's sustenance, and an immortal olive tree. I have lived on the land long before swords turned man into prey. I belong there. When heaven mourns for her mother, I return heaven to her mother. And I cry so that a returning cloud might carry my tears. To break the rules, I have learned all the words needed for a trial by blood. I have learned and dismantled all the words in order to draw from them a single word, home. Thank you.